No. Start recording. Got it. Right. Okay. Shall we kick off? And if people come along in a couple of minutes, I'll let them in, or they'll get straight in. Okay. Sorry, is somebody for Joseph Roundtree? Hi, Matt.
Hello, you're right.
So, welcome to the EN Connect Employment and Skills in Communities Forum. This is the 7th meeting we've had. So thereby, this is the anniversary meeting, as it were, because the first one was September last year. Meeting bi-monthly, the sort of maths adds up, if you like. So for this kind of anniversary meeting, what I thought would be really good and appropriate and timely would be a kind of focus on apprenticeships. Why? Because apprenticeships are so key to us as social housing providers, landlords, so forth, and supporting residents into work. But also, September is the month where the current apprenticeship additional support, and Victoria will use the absolute correct name, will end. And we've got Victoria Dixon from ESFA, who will tell us much more about the government policy in terms of apprenticeships. So please, as well as many other speakers, and sort of introduce in a moment on the agenda. So in the chat, please sort of introduce yourselves. I know there's an awful lot of regulars, if you like, which is great, and a couple of newbies, which is even better, if you like. And as ever, you're never quite sure who's going to be in and who's going to be out on these kind of meetings. When I looked this morning on those that had accepted the Outlook invite, there were 17 housing associations, 4 local authorities and 1 LEP that had accepted, and that always changes during the morning and thereafter. So I expect there'll be about 20-ish people, plus minus, which is about average and is always good. And other things crop up for individuals. So if I just quickly share the agenda, if I can get there. No, wrong one, I think. Hold on. No, that's Livin's presentation. Apologies. How do I now go out? As I'm on Spotlight, exit Spotlight, stop presenting. Right. Me and technology. Right, hold on. If not, I know I circulated the agenda, so we've got the agenda. Right. Screen. Right, you can see. Can you see the agenda now?
No, we can see your LinkedIn screen, Simeon.
Right, that's because I was on that earlier. Hold on, let's go to Word. Can you see that?
No, still your LinkedIn screen.
Oh, flipping heck. Me and what's it? I can't get out. I'm on a loop now. Right. Let's just forget the agenda. Right. I'll talk through the agenda. Right. Too many screens. I was trying to reduce screens. So in sort of usual format, we've got kindly Lindsay Sweeney, who's the Managing Director of Communities at Work, giving us a bit on the sort of national policy update. And I know there'll be an awful lot there. And also in terms of particularly what's going on in Westminster and so forth. So really look forward to that. And I know Lindsay's in, if you like. Then followed every meeting, a particular landlord has volunteered to talk about the employability and skills development undertaken within their organisation. And Livin, who are based in the Northeast in County Durham, are going to talk with Vicky and or Helen, or both. Not quite sure, but I had a quick look at the presentation this morning. It's lovely in pink. And then Victoria Dixon, Skills Development Manager from ESFA, will talk about the current government policy on apprenticeships. And as we all know, there is a lot of focus in the Department of Education on further education and apprenticeships, led by the Secretary of State. And then Julie Dealey, a colleague within Efficiency North, one of the operating companies within Efficiency North, is going to talk about the work of Enable Futures, which is a CIC organisation which enables apprenticeships, and how it's using the tools given through government policy and working with employers and FE colleges on delivering apprenticeships. And then, as usual, a sort of wrap up and a really quick discussion on ideas for future sessions. Okay, so if I can pass the baton on to Lindsay and take it from there. And shall I unshare if I was sharing?
Yeah, we could see that agenda then. Thanks, Simeon.
Right, I don't know what happened. Mysterious.
It's
think it
very
was
tricky to
Jonathan.
multitask, isn't it? When we were all staring at you. I was trying to find a way to upload the file into the chat box, and that's beaten me as well, which is ridiculous after a good year and a half online, hey? But
and the next 18 months to practice.
yeah.
Possibly, probably.
Maybe we're all a bit rusty after the summer holiday. I don't know. Anyway, thanks, Simeon, for the intro. And it's very, very nice to see everyone again. As Simeon said, some new faces and familiar faces. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from Livin after me. So I definitely won't talk over my time, and an early warning to Livin, I might even underuse my time. So you might get an extra 5 minutes there. But I'm looking forward to that and hope I can stay on for most of the rest of the meeting. If I can't, just as an aside, Simeon, my request is to hear from ACES, from colleagues Hannah Taylor-Dales and others who were spotlighting some of their own employment services. And I spotted it on LinkedIn earlier and mentioned it to you, Simeon. So thanks, I'll take that as a thumbs up for a future meeting.
Well,
that was my
yeah. Or Hannah, do you want to quickly talk about it in AOB? I know you're on the line.
I can, but I might have to shoot off.
Right.
Sorry, I've got a school run time.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I'm happy to circulate something if you like, or join for the next one. Completely up to you guys.
Yeah, fine. And
fantastic.
it'll be recorded. I'll send our link out through YouTube, but private channel for the recording to people if they got to leave early or whatever. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so that was my little bits of housekeeping, and I don't have any slides or anything today, but just a few brief points to cover, some of which is hugely familiar. It's stuff that's in the news, and some of it may be sort of slightly more in the shadows, and I'll just try and bring out a few of those things. It very much feels like summer feels like a long time ago, and Parliament started with a bang last week. A real string of announcements have come out. I think perhaps faster than most think tanks and political commentators thought. So they were expecting a little bit of a delay on announcements from Treasury and Number 10 on a few key areas, but actually they all came out within the first week. And, you know, politics is never done, it's never static, and this will just continue. So I think it's going to be a busy and a turbulent autumn ahead. Just aside from Parliament at the moment, the real obvious news, and I mention it really just because it sets the tone for so much of this autumn, is some key headline figures and some key facts of, you know, states of affairs which are about to change. You may well have seen some headlines today of a record number of job vacancies in the country, over 1 million, 1.03 million jobs are now advertised and vacant and needing to be filled in the country. That's the highest number they've recorded since they began counting that, which I think is about 20 odd years ago. So that's a spike and, you know, a headline grabbing fact. It's both, you feels like quite exciting, positive news, but is generally treated as a problem, having that many jobs unfilled, and is seen as something which slows the pace of recovery and causes problems for employers. So government and DWP have an interesting tension between always wanting more job vacancies for people to go for, and always wanting employers to have the workforce and the staff they need, and those two things never really match. Anyway, that's the top headline. And we also know two things are happening at the end of September. On the 30th of September, the universal credit uplift will go. I think I'd go into any major betting shop at the moment and put my savings on that. Famous last words, but I don't think that's going to be extended. I think the time has passed for that to happen. There could be some last minute representations, but I can't see it. And furlough, what's left of the furlough scheme will also end on the same day, 30th of September. So these things are quite, serious systemic changes to what we've all got used to in the last 18 months, and are going to have some profound impacts, and maybe not immediate impacts. They may take a while to come through the jobs market, the employment market, and the welfare state that's supporting us. So, there's a lot coming up in the immediate short term and how how that's going to affect our communities, tenants, residents, and ourselves is profound. There was an interesting sort of comment piece. So 1.5 million people are left on furlough, and they're starting to trickle away. And it's expected that by the end of September, about 1 million people will, finally come off furlough, and that will be a crunch time for them and their employers to either take them back into work and pay their salary in full, or make them redundant. Lots of those employers should be putting people on notice already, within the last 2 weeks, if they intend to create redundancies, but that's not always clear, and it's not really known actually how many of those jobs will simply come back into the economy and how many will disappear or reshape. And there's a whole debate which has been going on for months now about the importance of reskilling and changing the skills and opportunity for people who may have left the pandemic with one job and be coming back into the workforce really with another set of opportunities and a new set of skills, or an adapted set of skills needed to go into those jobs. That debate's not going anywhere, and the skills challenge I think replaces at the moment the productivity challenge that the government always likes to wrestle with. So that's going to affect decisions in government for years to come. I think skills are not done overnight. It's not like flicking a switch. So all of those things are happening, and perhaps it's an easy assumption to make in the public imagination that 1 million plus jobs is a great thing, and having 1 million people looking for jobs is a simple equation. And of course it's not. And I'll put a link into just a nice bit of commentary I read from the BBC actually recently that said, these two problems, the problem being a very high number of job vacancies, and the problem of people coming off furlough, and those numbers looking the same, these two problems will not solve one another, is how he described it. And I think that is very true. And even officials in the Treasury can be forgiven for occasionally thinking that that's the job situation solved. There are so many jobs. We, the Treasury, have created the plan for jobs. We've boosted capacity at Job Centre Plus. We've launched Kickstart, and we've launched Restart. Go forth and get employed, and we make the argument continually at Treasury that it's not as simple as that. And a lot of our tenants, residents, and our wider communities were disadvantaged in the labour market before, and they're still disadvantaged now, or more so in this slightly changed landscape post-COVID. And different and longer term and sustained types of support are absolutely crucial to help our tenants, residents, and communities either back into work or into work for the first time. And we will continue to press for that. It won't come as any surprise to you that one of the main avenues we're pursuing on that is the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, for which we're expecting some news in the coming 6 to 8 weeks. It's not the only game in town, but it is the most significant redrawing of social support and social funding in the UK for a generation. So it does matter. And we are going to push and continuing to push for a unique role and to demonstrate an opportunity for housing and government to work together through the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, and to make the point that we actually share quite a lot of the drive and ambition and hope and aspiration for tenants, residents and communities between us. There's a lot of platitudes about levelling up, and I won't sort of bother with any of them, but there is a genuine policy tie-in between the best parts of that agenda and the drive and mission of social housing. And we're trying to join those dots and get closer to an agreement with government on how UK SPF can help us and work with us as a sector. So that is going on, and that will be, you know, I will start to sound like a cracked record. That's going to be on repeat really for the next few weeks, months, certainly into next year. And we will see where the sort of territory lies for opportunities with housing soon. Back on the sort of political main stage, it won't have escaped your attention that the Chancellor has announced the date for the comprehensive spending review and the autumn statement. So the autumn statement is a bit of a look back produced by the Office of Budget Responsibility for it's a bit like a balance sheet of the year. And the comprehensive spending review is a statement of intent, really. It's budget set for the coming couple of years. So there wasn't one of these really last year because of COVID. So this spending review is going to be the Chancellor's opportunity to set his plans up until the next general election. So it's a really significant spending review. The government will be looking at where the tone is. They will be thinking about the next general election now. It's going to be in May 24 at the latest. And they will be considering spending priorities, which will put them in a favourable wind for that election. They may fail at that, but that's what they'll be trying to do. So it's going to be a really interesting one. We were expecting considerable detail on the UK Shared Prosperity Fund at the spending review, and a little placeholder for next week. We are holding a Shared Prosperity Fund event, just a briefing event for housing, for anyone in the social housing sector next week. And I'll put a link in the chat box so you can sign up and register to that. It's a cross-sector initiative, so everyone really is welcome. And I'll go into a bit more detail there then. But while we are expecting some detail on the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, there will be announcements around the spending review time. But there may also be some opportunities to continue to influence and shape the Shared Prosperity Fund beyond the date of the comprehensive spending review. And that feels a little bit new and a little bit different. So for anyone, in case you don't know, the date of the spending review is the 27th of October. So if you're planning on a half term, certainly if you're us, you're planning again right now. We'll be in work and watching what the Chancellor says and thinking it through. There will be news on UK SPF. They may continue to describe a framework, which is the phrase they've used for the last few months on UK SPF. They may abandon that phrase, but there'll be announcements. There may be some headlines on it, but perhaps positively, hearteningly, there may be, I'm sure there will be continued chances to shape and influence that fund before it launches. Whilst that's great news for us as a lobbying organisation, it's also slightly unnerving and worrying for any organisation thinking of running UK SPF. A lot of local authorities consider themselves to be in the driving seat for this. That's debatable, but is likely. They just want to know the details so they can get on and plan, because at the moment the start date for SPF is March of next year. So it's, you know, vanishing into a matter of weeks, really, by the time we get to the comprehensive spending review. So that's all feeling a bit tight, but interesting and positive. And believe you me, we are pushing for the role of housing in the Shared Prosperity Fund, and we'll continue to ad infinitum. Last bits on that, I'm aware of time. what did I want to say? Oh yes, we've got like part of the sort of SPF debate is the role of green jobs and housing, and whether it will use some of its funding to support and you know, bring up the role of new jobs, new skills, green jobs, and you know, dealing with net zero and all the priorities that will come out of COP26. There's a lot to unpack in there, and you know, we're not going to get through it all this year, but we are running an event the day before the comprehensive spending review on the 26th. And I'll drop a note in this chat box as well for that. Again, it's an open event, so everyone here is very warmly welcome. And that's going to be on green jobs, housing and skills. There's been an interesting report out today from the Social Market Foundation, which looks at a bit of a heat map, really, of risks and opportunities around green jobs geographically. And it shows particular opportunity and associated risk of green jobs in northeast, northwest, north generally, actually, rather than the south. So it's a bit of a flipping of perhaps some of the old adages about where opportunity and salaries lie. And it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out over the next decade. So I'll share a link to that report that's out, and a reminder of that green jobs event that's coming up. So I just wanted to sort of mention that as a final area, and I'll also put in a note about the Shared Prosperity Fund Housing Network meeting, which is next week, to which you're also really welcome to come. So there's an awful lot going on. We've got a members webinar. We're back in those after summer break at the end of September. If you're a Communities at Work member, you'll be notified of that in our newsletter, and you're very welcome to join it. We'll have the Youth Futures Foundation there, I think, talking about some place-based funding of their own, which they're planning to drive through local communities to support young people who have, without doubt, been hardest hit economically and in terms of the jobs market through COVID. So we were interested to hear about that. But yeah, there's a lot of big ticket items going on in government at the moment. We will be submitting to the Treasury's formal comprehensive spending review window, and its portal is open to anyone now until the 30th of September. So everything's happening on the 30th of September, basically. It's going to be a busy day, but that's us. Sorry to kind of swerve around a few bits there, but I hope that's a reasonably helpful update. Budget matters, the spending review matters, UK SPF is there in it. And we are, a final thing I should say is we will be launching our early policy positions at Conservative Party conference, which is from the 3rd to the 6th of October in Manchester. So we were there last week for CIH, had a great time. We'll be back there again, probably having slightly less great time in a few weeks, but we will be banging the drum and hopefully have quite a lot of good MPs at a private dinner where we'll be launching some of the key points we want to make in our UK Shared Prosperity Fund prospectus. And of course, you'll all be appraised of that as it comes off the printing press. So that is us. Thanks, Simeon.
And thank you, Lindsay. Has anybody got any questions? Anything about UK SPF? No? Apart from it can't happen in March.
Yeah.
Too soon.
Yeah.
I mean, it will happen, but on their current track record, they've had 4+ years to develop it, and nobody seems to have seen much about it.
Yeah.
So, and well, more to the point, they haven't even announced the Community Renewal Fund winners yet, and that's got stuck in Whitehall somewhere, somehow.
Yeah, you're quite right. You're quite right. I forgot to mention that.
That was meant to be the pilot and the lessons learned. Yeah. So we can only but see.
Yeah, I think you're right, Simeon. I wouldn't mind betting it goes back to summer or even autumn 22, but at the moment they're holding the line. So yeah, well, I'll take a wager.
Like many things, there's a 3-line whip somewhere. Yeah. Probably on the Secretary of State for Education's desk. But yes, personally, I think autumn, and goodness knows what happens in the interim. But anyway, hey ho.
There we are.
Right. Okay. If nobody's got any further questions, and Lynn's going to put in the kindly, as she always does, the cut and paste those links. Can we move on to Vicky and Helen and whomever is taking the lead, and come in and hello living.
Hi, I'm Vicky. I'm going to start off the presentation and then Helen's going to come through. Helen runs the service, so I'm just going to introduce it and then I'll step back because that's only right. Is the presentation there at all?
Simeon, are you able to share?
I think you're on mute.
Sorry, I muted myself. I've already failed once on sharing, so let's see if I can bring it up. Right. So you got the agenda there.
Yeah.
If I go to live in there,
Yeah.
then you can see that, slideshow.
Yes.
At the beginning, and then like a chief medical officer, you just say next and I'll click on.
Right, okay. I'll just introduce myself. I'm Vicky Miller. I'm a head of regeneration at Living. Just to give you a bit of context about who we are, we're a registered provider. We've existed for 12 years now, so we're an LSBT that used to be Sedgefield Borough Council. We have 8,500 houses. And we cover the towns, some of you may know Newton Aycliffe, Spennymoor, Sedgefield, Shildon. They're our kind of main towns that we cover. So there is a combination of ex-industrial and rural communities there that we cover. But also there's, when you look at left behind communities, there's some of those are in that list there as well. We have about 160 staff, but that's not counting our main repairs and maintenance contractor, MIAs. So they have another 100 staff or so. And Living Futures is our employability service, and it sits within regeneration for a very good reason. You know, it's about placemaking and it's about improving lives. So it also sits alongside our customer voice team as well. It sits with our community investment team and placemaking team, so proper regeneration teams. So it was just really to give you a context about where it sits. It's a core service. So, you know, we hold it close to our heart at Living. So you can see there our kind of mantra is work and training that goes above and beyond to help our tenants into work. So it is mainly about tenants, but we don't dismiss anyone when we're placemaking. There's obviously a lot of other residents there that require help, and we do work tenure blind with schools and in communities as well. It was established pretty much straight after transfer. We said the most important thing we can do for communities is economic sustainability. So it was the first strand that came through to help support our communities. So 2010, Helen joined us at Living and set up our employability service. Simeon, I think the presentation's gone off.
Hold on, sorry, I just saw it. Hold on, how do I get it back? Here we go. Don't flick, I just saw a message. I'm wondering if it's somebody from here. Is that back on?
No.
Right, hold on. I'm going to unshare and then I'm going to reshare and start again.
Thank you.
There's a lesson. Don't touch a screen. Hold on. Right. If I go to there, is that back on?
No.
Right, hold on.
Oh, that's it.
Right, I'm just going to touch a
We're
cursor.
there.
Sorry. Got my fingers on.
Can you put it on the show screen rather than that? I'm just thinking some of the latest slides people won't be able to read.
Right, hold on. Right, I'll put it up from beginning.
Yeah. And we'll just click through.
Is that bigger? Hold on. There. Does that make it bigger from current slide show? I'm on slideshow. And then I'll put it from current slide. And normally, does it show the notes pages? Does it show really small? And How odd.
Not normally.
Okay, I'll just, can people see it? If, yeah, I can only see Lindsay and Helen. So I don't know.
Yeah, we can see it. Okay.
Right. Okay.
Right, sorry people,
It's all right.
I'm a IT Neanderthal.
So just on the previous slide, really, I just wanted to kind of highlight. So we've provided so far since 2010, 6,000 support 6,000 people, and we've supported over 2,000 people into employment. So we've kind of built up a really good track record of getting that end outcome out. So next slide, please, Simeon.
See that?
Yeah, that's the one. So our targets at strategic level, Living Futures sits within our objectives to sustain tenancies, but it does go across to supporting communities as well. And at the highest level 1 kind of KPI level, we do have getting tenants jobs. And we have another 3 indicators that I report to board every quarter about participation rates, about getting people that are furthest away from the labour market into work, and also the amount of social value we generate. So I just, again, I don't want to kind of stress the point too much, but at a board level, they're particularly interested in how, you know, this key part of our kind of community regeneration service. So our Living Futures targets are set by board. So we provide employability to, so this year we've got to get 530 tenants, and I've stressed that as well. We also have targets for tenants and other residents. 530 tenants participating, 280 into work, achieve 4.25 social value. So that's the hacked social value calculator. But also very quickly at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, we started making that connection. There's nothing like a crisis that pulls teams and collaboration together internally. It was always something that Helen and I wanted to do, but really that focus on protecting those people that were on furlough or being made redundant, and all of this crisis really focused Living Well, the Living Futures team, as well as the financial wellbeing team, into protecting our income as well as protecting people's livelihoods as well. So we also have started monitoring our effect we're having on rent arrears at Living as well. So I think that's kind of a really positive step forward. I mean, during COVID, this became a strategic priority for us as well, and we very quickly changed all of our offers. So it started in May. By about August, all of our offers had changed, website pages changed, the whole lot, because we had a completely new market. So we had those people that wouldn't traditionally come to us for support, that have been really job secure, that all of a sudden weren't job secure. So we had to remarket Living Futures to that group and think of some offers to very quickly get them back into the workplace and into retraining, that kind of thing. So we're quite an agile service, but I'll shut up now because I can talk forever about Living Futures because it's brilliant, and I'll hand over to Helen.
Thank you. I hope you can all manage to see that all right. You might need a magnifying glass. We've got so much on here, but basically we call the different programs that we run pathways, and we have the pathways available not only for working age people, but we go right back to primary school age group. So along the bottom of this table here, I've got the different age groups and year groups at school, going all the way up to adults and long-term unemployed, as say from primary school. So just starting on the left-hand side of the page, I'll just run through some of the operational programs that we actually offer our tenants and tenant family members. So for primary and year 7 and 8, we have breakfast clubs. So it's not that we go in and make breakfast for them, it's working in partnership with Greg's Foundation, so that the children are getting a healthy breakfast on a morning before they start the lessons. We have seen improvements in attainment levels. Now, we would like to think it's because we offer a healthy breakfast, but I'm sure the teachers would also like to think that it's because they're doing something good as well. So it's probably a mixture of both, the healthy breakfast there and good teaching is improving attendance at school, but is also improving the attainment levels of the children. We're also involved in the Holiday Hunger Club. I think it was a day out, not a handout. There was a government white paper written on this a few years back, where we, during the 6 weeks holiday, we were putting activities on for children, and then they got a healthy lunch during the day. We demonstrated that that was such a successful project that we actually continued to run that as well during our 6 weeks holidays, and some Easter holidays as well. So again, working in partnership with the Foundation of Light and also local football clubs, different community organisations, we put those holiday clubs on. For the younger children as well, working again with youth clubs and community organisations, Foundation of Light and community organisations, we were able to put youth clubs, do youth work, just to keep the children occupied. But what we find is if we build that relationship up with the children, if they've been working with us for a few years, when they come to leave school, they're used to us. We're not somebody new that's starting to come in and say, right, what are you doing? Are you going to college? Are you going to work? They've kind of grown up with us and they've got used to us. So just moving up to the top of the second column there, apprenticeship awareness challenges. We go into schools. We've got a good relationship with secondary schools in the area, and also along with other employers go in and to talk about different apprenticeship schemes that we have, different vocational areas. We get the children come out and actually have a look around our premises and get to meet the apprentices and basically find out what it's all about. And then they present their findings back to the rest of the year group. So it's a bit of peer training as well. Careers guidance. I'm the enterprise advisor for one of our local secondary schools as part of the North East LEP. So it's just going in and working with them to discuss what they're doing on their careers curriculum, if there's any suggestions or ideas as to how we can improve. Again, working with secondary schools, we get our apprentices to go in and do different teamwork activities and employability and interview techniques and things with the schools. So again, the children are used to us. We kind of like getting embedded in the lives without them realising that we're there. Careers fairs, schools often asking, can we go in to do different careers fairs, again with other employers, just to offer, to give advice on what we're able to offer a school leaver when they leave, whether it be work experience, whether it be apprenticeship programmes, or if sometimes these careers fairs are where the parents can come along, so then it's also talking to the parents about what we can do to help and support those as well. And then, so that's more or less what we do with them when they're at school age, but then moving on to when they actually leave school. So from 16-year-olds up to long-term unemployment, we do mock interviews. So again, either through schools, through careers fairs. So we do those mock interviews. We have, I'm just squinting, sorry, I don't know whether you can see me squinting because I can't see the screen.
Yeah, sorry, I was
Foundation.
trying to make it bigger.
Yeah, Foundation of Light, we do have a partnership with the Foundation of Light, part of Sunderland Football Club. They have a better skills, better chances. So we have a contract with them. They work with our tenants. And as they say, it's the power of the badge. So instead of coming to the landlord to do training, they might be more prepared to go to the local football team to do some employability training. So that works well.
I've just noticed the button on my computer that says resume slideshow. So if I try and press it, and I might have to click through, let's see if that makes it bigger. No, it doesn't.
Yeah, it's all right. As long as you don't mind me squinting at the screen.
No.
Should have had me magnifying glass, I think. So the next thing we've got on there is skills foundations. Now, skills foundations, we love skills foundations, and we basically look to see where the gaps are. All right, so obviously we don't repeat what's already being carried out. Oh, that's better. I can see it better now. We don't repeat what's already being carried out. Mainstream education, like, why should we? So it's seeing where the gaps are. So I've got down there HGV. Now I know that was one thing that the group was looking at a couple of months ago, but we've been running HGV training and getting our tenants licenses for about 4 years now. So again, we identified that there was a need for HGV. We identified this 4 years ago. Governments just seem to have decided now that there's a need for HGV. So we have been recruiting and paying for our tenants to do HGV licenses. What we find is we normally put about 10 to 15 each year through. So it's not massive numbers, but what we find is that as soon as they pass the test, they have an employer knocking on the door saying, come and work for us. So they more or less like have a choice as to where they want to work when they pass, and even more so now at the minute. We do warehousing, we pay for forklift truck licenses. So again, the Northeast, we've got quite a few Amazon factories that's opened up recently, and Newton Aycliffe apparently is going to be like the main warehousing capital in the country. So there is quite a demand for that, but obviously forklift trucks, so we're paying for people to do forklift truck licenses. We do care. What we identified with care was a number of jobs in care. A lot of it was domiciliary work. So it was a case of they couldn't apply for these vacancies because they didn't have a driving licence. They wouldn't be able to get from A to B to C. So we put a care work experience programme on, but then we also paid for them to do driving lessons as well, and paid for the theory test and the practical test. And then administration, and then we do community work. That it involves work experience. We do training with them, and we get a basic qualification for them as well. But what we find with skills foundations is that we have such a high like progression into employment from our skills foundations, and it's like wherever we see a gap, we'll develop something to meet those needs. Apprenticeships from level 2 all the way up to level 6. Our subcontractors, so me as our grounds maintenance contractor, who is Glendale, within their contract it is that they will take apprentices from us, and they will come through, they'll be classed as living futures apprentices, even though they'll be employed by me and Glendale. So as I say, we've got, I think last time I counted up about 14 different occupational areas that we offer for apprenticeships. Employability Skills Fund. This is something that Living, in partnership with Durham County Council, set up an Employability Skills Fund where people can apply to do training up to £1,000. So if any of our tenants come to us and they've got a strange request, whether they want to do oil rig offshore training or whatever, we've had security job training, you name it, that we can apply for them to undertake the employability, to get funding from the Employability Skills Fund. Work experience. Unfortunately, schools don't tend to do work experience now, but we do put the offer out. So during holiday periods, if any of the school students want to do work experience during holiday time, we just organise that as and when, but we do try and encourage students to get involved. But if any of our tenants are looking for work experience, again, we just arrange it around what their individual needs are. We organise jobs fairs. The last jobs fair, I think we had about 45 different employers. We try and make sure there's a variety of employers there to meet everybody's needs. This year we've been involved in Kickstart. We've had 42 Kickstart placements so far, which is working very, very well. Love the programme, just wish it would continue. I think that's basically comments on that. But it's all of our contractors and subcontractors that have been involved, and some of our local schools that we work with that have actually agreed to take people on placement. It's been really, really good. I think the problem is that I think we're kind of running out of young people at the minute. We've got plenty of placements, but we seem to be running out of young people that want to do it. I won't say that there's not any young people, it's just those that want to do it. We are part of the ESF project called Linked, which Durham County Council is the lead on that, and that's working with those tenants that are farthest removed from the labour market. So real hand-holding, a lot of support these people need, but we are part of that initiative, which I'll explain a little bit more later on the next slide. We have a work and training grant, which is an internal fund of up to £400 per person, so any barriers that might stop them moving into employment. And what we find is that the majority of our work and training grant has been spent on either uniform, tools and equipment, or travel and expenses for the first until they get the first pay. Because obviously they're having to travel to work, but they're not getting paid until the end of the month. So it's a difficulty. So it's anything that might be a barrier to them stopping actually moving into employment. We've got handy person service there. This is new. It's just about to be launched. But the handy person service, this is through our partners, Mia's, who are introducing the handy person service, but for our tenants. But it will be a work experience programme as well. So over the next 12 months, we expect to see 50 of our tenants that will be carrying out work experience as a result of this. And then we'll be supporting them with employability support, updating the CVs and trying to get them moved on. And then, as I mentioned there, CV prep, job search, applying for jobs online, you name it, we will do it. Anything that like to support that person move into employment. And that's basically at the minute, but it always changes. We never stay the same. It's like new things are getting added all the time. And as Vicky said, we have got a website. Everything's all recorded on the website as to what people can actually do and how they can apply for it and how they can progress, really. Next slide.
Helen?
Yeah.
Sorry, why won't you go to the next slide?
Sorry.
Right, there. So, you have about a couple more minutes. Is that okay? Sorry.
Right. Okay, yeah. So just quickly, when COVID came in, it was like we had, we decided to have programme 1 up to programme 4. Programme 1 was those people that had maybe worked all their lives, just lost their employment because of COVID. So they had the right attitude, quick turnarounds, just point them in the right direction and they'd be away, all the way through to programme 4, which would be those that had substantial barriers to work and needed a lot of support, a lot of hand-holding, needed support from our tenancy support section as well as the Living Futures team as well. So next slide. So I think really, I mean, we've covered like team interaction. We've been trying to get this team interaction like going for years, but it has really happened since COVID. So we've got Living Futures, we have our financial wellbeing team, and we have tenancy support. And it's just been a brilliant example of how we've actually worked together really well over the COVID time. I mean, our tenancy support, I mean, they've worked with 83 people that had mental health issues, 15 people with domestic abuse, substance misuse, 9 people. So they've worked with them to support them to remove their barriers or to help them live with those barriers before we then looked at then helping them on the employability side. So again, on financial wellbeing, they've referred into us, people that have contacted them because they've been made redundant or they've been furloughed and so on. So it has been a real good team effort. But what we also do is once we actually get people jobs, it's then referring back into financial wellbeing. So it's kind of like a benefit into work review to try and help and support them once they've actually come off benefits to go into employment. Next slide.
Sorry, I've jumped one.
Yeah, I mean, this is just, we work closely with partners. I think this slide is just to say that we do work very closely with other people. So we've got Mia's who are working under our Live and Works banner. So they do the repairs and maintenance. So they're currently taking on apprentices. We're looking to take on the handy person service. We just currently recruiting for kickstart vacancies for Mia's. So it's all working well. And then we've got a number of community organisations that are actually that work closely with the community. They're well respected, they're well known with the community, but we also help that they also helping on the employability side as well. Next slide. So outcomes, I know at the beginning we said what our targets would be, but since April of last year, we've worked with 632 tenants, 263 of them have secured work, 5.25 million in social value from HACT. But on the new measure that we've got this year was the reduction in rent arrears. So what it's a 34% reduction in rent arrears. And what we're doing is once somebody gets employed, we measuring like from that date, and then we're measuring from 6 months later to see what the difference is. And there's a 34% reduction in rent arrears. So we're really impressed with that figure. And then next slide, I think that's more or less it. So next slide. We have got a website, as I said, that's up to date. It's got everything on. If you want to find out more, just have a look at our website, and that's our email address if you wanted to contact us to ask us anything in particular. And that's it. Any questions?
Really sorry about my IT glitches and things like that. Thanks very much, Helen. That was fascinating. And well, it was over 4 years ago where I used to work for a social housing landlord, and I know we used to look up to what was occurring, particularly in the sort of repairs and maintenance realm of living. So it's fascinating to hear what you're doing up in County Durham. And I really like the rent arrears link. I think that's really important, and that's what, for a landlord in a business sense, that's one of the important drivers to support employability. Clearly for the individual, but there's a clear commercial sense for a landlord in that, as well as for the individual and their own pride and things like that. So has anybody got any questions? I'm sure there'll be lots. Silence. That's just.
Jan's got her hand up.
Sorry, I couldn't see, but I don't know what's I'm doing. Jan, do you want to shoot off? Thanks.
Hi, Helen. I was just interested. I'm from Ongoing in North Lincolnshire, and we're just sort of resurrecting our handy van service, we call it. I just wonder how you're actually getting the business.
Well, it's our contractors that are actually running that programme. As I say, we're just in the process of recruiting supervisor at this stage, so it's probably a bit early for me to answer that one. I don't know, Vicky, do you know how they're doing?
Yeah, I think it's connecting those things up again. So in terms of making a better repair service, they're doing a kind of a programme of handy person, picking off the really easy repairs. And in that environment, it's a perfect environment to put in your training and your work experience. So it started off with a kind of a seed of an idea that actually Maze could get downstream, fix a few things, free up the fully qualified joiners and plumbers and all of that, and do some minor repair work to reduce that volume. But like I said, and then it was like, well, actually, that'll be fantastic for our tenants to learn some DIY skills, you know, to get out on the vans and to be supported by Living Futures.
Yeah.
So together, and then Maze are just kind of launching it. And like Helen said, we did look at funding at some point. We looked at some ESF funding for it, but it was too restrictive. And in the end, ourselves and Maze just said, we'll just do it ourselves. That way we're free to get the best results for both parties. So
Right. Okay. So it's a little bit different to ours then, because ours is we're training up a team of people, of tenants and customers to have the skills to actually sell their services and become self-employed. So it's a different kind of aspect of it, really.
I mean, it depends on the employability support. We have got partners in the background like South Durham Enterprise Agency, who, if there was some person there that was really, really keen on it, we would just work with them on those business skills that they need to move into employment. Whereas others, you know, it's a forerunner to things like, I mean, we've got the biggest industrial estate in Newton Aycliffe in the northeast.
Right.
You know, it's a forerunner really to get into those warehousing skills, which is by far our biggest employer in the area. So yeah.
Okay, thanks very much.
Okay, is there anybody else? I'm just conscious, got two other presentations. Jan, is your hand up for another question, or is it?
No,
still
it's on now.
just up?
Oh, sorry. I thought I put
No,
it down.
don't worry, I was just asking.
Okay.
Okay, well, if I can thank Vicky and Helen a huge amount, that was fascinating. And you know, the sheer amount that you're delivering in a relatively small geographic area is amazing, and how you've been doing it for so long. I think that's brilliant. Okay, if I could now ask Helen from ESFA to talk about ESFA, Department of Education and apprenticeships. I could move on.
I take it you mean me, Simeon.
Sorry, oh
Victoria.
God, I've lost the plot on IT today. I
Fine.
really have. Sorry, Victoria.
I'm just wondering if everyone can see my slides there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is it in the full format, or do I need to do anything more with them?
It looks okay. It looks different to the previous presentation, but it looks fine, Victoria.
That's absolutely great. I will leave my camera off just so I don't have any connection issues, because I do have some broadband issues normally when I'm presenting. So my name is Victoria Dixon and I work for the Education and Skills Funding Agency within what is branded the National Apprenticeship Service, although we are looking at what our name should be because we also cover traineeships and T-levels. But I'm just here today to give you a bit of an overview of what's happening within the skills space. I do have a standard set of slides and a lot of it I won't cover, but it's just talking points really for me to give you a few updates on. The key message we've been given to employers over the last, however long this pandemic's lasted, since March, is that all of the skills opportunities that we have available are designed to support employers and especially to support economic recovery. And I just wanted to start with this slide really, which explains where the skills offers sit in comparison to apprenticeships. We always class apprenticeships as our leading programme and all of the other skills opportunities that lead to apprenticeships. So it's that golden thread from the skills opportunities on the bottom of the screen through into apprenticeships. So I'm going to talk through both traineeships, T-levels and apprenticeships. Just to touch on Kickstart, obviously that's not a DFE programme, it sits within the DWP, but we are working alongside them to enable as much progression as possible from Kickstart into apprenticeships. So where employers have engaged in the Kickstart programme, but have never engaged in apprenticeships before, we are offering that support to enable that level of progression. So I'll start with a bit of an update on the overall approach to skills from the agency. For some time, we've described employees that have been at the heart of the skills programmes, and that's our 10-year ambition for employees to be central to how all of the technical courses are designed. That has been the case for some time in apprenticeships since we introduced apprenticeship standards that are developed by employers. But we are keen more than ever now to hear from employers to ensure that the skills offers that are being developed and are being delivered are working for them. So I have included my contact details on the end of the slides, and I know Simeon will share them with you. So get in touch if there's anything that's not working for you as an employer, anything you think we need to be doing as an agency. Our aim is to drive quality in all of the programmes I've touched on. So if something isn't working for you as employers, we need to hear from you and work together to make it better. So just in terms of apprenticeships, as I've said, that is our key programme for supporting economic recovery. And as I've mentioned, all of our apprenticeship standards are developed by employers, and we do assure quality through our endpoint assessment process. Now, the endpoint assessment process is new for apprenticeships. It isn't something that we had in place before the apprenticeship reforms, and this is an area we are hearing quite a lot of feedback on. Since we've introduced endpoint assessment, we have seen a reduction in the number of apprentices that are successfully completing their apprenticeship. So again, we need to hear from you as to why that is and if there's any changes needed to that endpoint assessment process. So if you are already delivering apprenticeships, let us know how it's going for you. And if you're not, I just wanted to include some information on there about the range of apprenticeships that are available. 598 standards approved for delivery. That figure might not be quite right. There may be a few more that have been introduced, but apprenticeships cover a wide range of jobs. It is a genuine job with a skills development programme, so an excellent way of upskilling existing staff and also taking on new staff. I won't go through the benefits to apprenticeships. There's a lot on that slide that you can maybe have a little look at a later date, but what I will say is the Skills for Jobs, the Chancellor's budget and also the PM's skills speech featured heavily apprenticeships as the route to economic recovery and creating opportunities for young people, which I can see is a key theme of this group's. But we do want to work with employers to create those opportunities, especially for young people who have been hardest hit by the pandemic. Employers tell us all the time that apprenticeships are really complicated and they don't quite know where to start. So we have developed our Road to Equality apprenticeship tool, and there's a picture of it on screen and also a link to the tool that's held on .gov. So what we're aiming to do with this tool is bring together all of the tools and all of the paperwork and all of the guidance around apprenticeships into one document. So it's interactive. It includes all of the information an employer will need to support them through that journey. We do want to make apprenticeships as accessible as possible, so we're continually updating this tool, but we do want it to be the first place employers go to when they're starting that apprenticeship journey. And we want to make it simple, but also make it a quality journey for apprentices. So we're really focused now as an agency on driving quality within our programme, and as I've mentioned, improving completions so that every start on apprenticeships leads to a successful outcome. I don't have a slide on the current apprenticeship incentives. They are due to end on the 30th of September. So there's currently a £3,000 incentive for anybody recruiting a new apprentice into their organisation. The apprenticeship incentives are featuring as part of our spending review and our work to secure a budget that supports apprenticeships for the next 3 years. So this is something we're considering and working on at the moment, but again, any thoughts you've got on what that apprenticeship incentive should look like and how it should be used, then please feel free to share. I also wanted to touch on the apprenticeship levy and the fact that that funds all of our apprenticeship programme and all of the apprenticeship training that happens, but not all employers pay the levy. And we are trying to make the whole levy process a lot more streamlined for large levy paying employers to be able to transfer their levy to SMEs or smaller employers who would currently pay a 5% co-investment cost. So if I use a standard that's around 19,000 to deliver for a provider, and a smaller employer who doesn't pay the levy would pay around £1,000, which is a huge barrier for smaller employers in recruiting an apprentice. So we're developing a levy transfer service that's going to launch at the end of this month, and I've included a link so you can access it when it's out there. And the aim of the levy transfer service is for large levy paying employers to easily be able to pledge their levy, and for smaller employers to be able to find that pledge and overcome that co-investment cost. So this was always described as a barrier to apprenticeships for smaller employers, and it's something we are looking to overcome. So that 5% co-investment cost is going to remain, but we're hoping that introducing a really flexible and easy levy transfer scheme helps smaller employers to overcome that. So those are the key things on apprenticeships at the moment. We're trying to drive quality, to get the number of people that are completing an apprenticeship to increase, and to enable smaller employers to better access apprenticeships through our new levy transfer service. So I've included some links there. If there's anything you want to get in touch and discuss, you can either use the number on screen or my contact details at the end. I also wanted to mention T-levels, which is a new qualification that was introduced last September. And T-levels are really our route into higher apprenticeships. So they're a new 2-year qualification that are the equivalent to 3 A-levels. The qualification involves a industry placement that I always describe as the opposite to an apprenticeship. So an apprenticeship is 80% on the job, 20% in the classroom. A T-level is 80% in the classroom and 20% on the job. So the 45-day industry placement is where we're looking for employers to get involved and support young people that are completing this qualification. So somebody with a T-level is likely to be your next level 4, level 5 apprentice. T-levels are designed using the same apprenticeship standards for the sector. So if we take education and childcare for example, there may be 5 standards on the apprenticeship route that we've used to create one T-level. So the first delivery of the T-levels is going really well, but to support employers to get involved and host industry placements, we currently have a £1,000 incentive, which runs until July next year, to support them to overcome any cost barriers, in hosting an industry placement. I've included on the next slide all of the sectors where we're going to be having a T-level. So there's currently 11 sectors, but you're not restricted to the sector that your employer and business is within. You could host a digital placement in housing if you've got that digital need. So lots going on in that technical space. And again, I've included a link on the slide if you want to know some more information about getting involved in hosting industry placements. And just finally, I wanted to mention traineeships, which is our pre-apprenticeship programme. Traineeships have always been a generic work readiness programme, but we're currently working with industry to include some sector content to better support progression from traineeships into an apprenticeship. So these are really for young people who are not ready to start that apprenticeship journey and not looking to take a very technical route that's available through T-levels. Now, in terms of traineeships, the sector content that we're looking to develop at the moment is being trialled in bricklaying, barbering and rail track support. And the initial rollout in bricklaying is going really well. So Hartlepool College are supporting that trial. And we have seen improved progression just from young people having hands-on experience. They are progressing a lot quicker into that apprenticeship. So traineeships involve loads of classroom, lots of work readiness support and a work placement. So between 70 and 240 hours with an employer to help them to put into practice all of their skills. And again, we have a new employer incentive of £1,000 per trainee for the first trainees per region. So 9 regions, so you can have up to 10 in each region. And that again helps employers to overcome the costs of having a young person in their organisation and being able to offer them a really good high quality placement. And they're going to be available until the 31st of July next year. So now is really a good time to get involved, especially given the pandemic is hardest hit young people. And we see traineeships as an excellent progression into apprenticeships for them. Again, I've included all of the contact details you need to find out more. And finally, I have shared my contact details with you. As I say, we've just gone through the apprenticeship reform programme. We've introduced the levy, we've introduced standards. We're looking at changing how traineeships and the content is within them. But we do need to hear from employers. So if there's anything that we're doing as an agency that you need us to focus more on, then do get in touch. We're happy to work with you on any feedback. And that's it from me, Simeon. Huge
thanks, Victoria. So fascinating sort of quick canter through the ESFA offer, really. Has anybody got any questions? I mean, you ended with wanting employer engagement. We've got employers here. So. Yes, and if you ever want me to cover anything in a bit more detail, I'm happy to come back and speak to you in more depth on any of the programmes or to hold a more of a detailed conversation around what's working, what isn't working, but always open to feedback. Yes, we do want to hear from employers. That's a really kind offer. And as I said at the head of the meeting, you know, there's a circulation list of 40 plus landlords and things like that covering wider than Yorkshire and Humber into the northeast. You've heard from Living. Also, I know that there's Futures Housing, which is in sort of East Midlands and so forth, also as part of this group, and we're in an ever-changing map. But I know Helen's got her hand up, so.
Yeah, just a quick one. I mean, I've been involved working with apprentices nearly all my working life. I love apprenticeships. But what we found is there's a couple of our construction apprentices that have just recently done the endpoint assessment. And they've both unfortunately failed it, marginally failed it. But what we found is that they have been furloughed for nearly 12 months. They've been doing virtual college lessons and things. Now, I know there's got to be some standard that they've got to achieve to show that they can actually do the work, but is there any leeway coming in for those kind of apprentices that have missed a lot of the normal training and the normal work experience?
Yeah, I think we have had that feedback quite a bit, to say, yes, they've had the training, but have they really had the training? They haven't had the opportunity to, you know, retain those skills from repetition. So we do have a team that's currently looking at endpoint assessment flexibilities, and we did introduce some through COVID. So I'm quite happy to take that feedback to them, Helen, for you.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's got to be standards and they've got to show that they can do the job.
Yes.
But, you know, maybe it was just too soon for them to go in for the endpoint assessment, I think, really.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh.
Right. Is there anybody else with a quick question? Because this topic really neatly sort of segues into Julie Dealey, Director of Operations for Enable Futures, and her talk on apprenticeships. And it's almost you could wrap the two together. This is the government policy, and then there's a delivery arm about to do it. So do you want to start off, Julie?
I will, Simeon. Yes, thank you very much. I'll just share, see if I have any better luck sharing.
Yeah, as long as I don't do it.
Wow, never seen that one before. Oh, right, okay.
That's your board papers for tomorrow.
No, I just didn't change the name on it, Jonathan. I sort of plagiarised one paper that I was going to report at this one as well. How do I? Teams must have. Right, okay. Who did that for me? Did somebody do that? Right, okay. Teams has obviously changed. I'm getting as bad as Simeon on this. So just hi, Julie Dealey, Director of Operations for Enable Futures. So we run what we used to call a shared apprenticeship service, or still do call it really, for the last 8 years. But actually, it's the new government flexi-job apprenticeship offer. So for those of you who have sort of been reading in the news and everything that the government are trying to achieve, the recognition they've given the new flexi-job apprenticeship agencies that we are actually applying for to be on the register at the moment. We have actually been delivering that self-same model for the last 8 years, and in fact the ESFA did come to us as a group of shared apprenticeship services which cover the whole of England to sort of ask us, what does a good flexi-job apprenticeship look like? So we've been working quite closely with the ESFA. So we sort of originated, as I say, 8 years ago when social value became more prominent. Apprentices were being employed and being displaced because when the project finished, they just weren't being kept on. So we offer a choice of pathways. We offer obviously as an alternative to GCSE, to A-levels and university. Bringing young people into the sector, giving them the skills to develop their career. And we deliver a development coach to all our apprentices. So they get pastoral support, they get in-work support and academic support throughout the duration of their apprenticeship. We always give them a contract for the duration of their apprenticeship. And that extra support, we find that the hosts, so the employers who use our services, we call them our hosts, they recognise the difference that our development coaches make and the mentoring that we deliver, and how that often results in more successful apprenticeships than they have had in the past through a traditional route way. You know, and the type of apprentice and young person who is recruited seems to be much more successful. So we find it is really successful. So how it works, so our hosts provide an insight into what their requirements are. So they have a site, what type of apprentice do they want? Will the apprentice get the right type of experience to be able to be successful? We have to obviously, you know, is there a training provider available that can deliver the apprenticeship? So there's a lot of things there We then directly employ the apprentice. The host can be as involved as in this process as they choose to be. The host pays a weekly fee, and then when the apprentice has finished their employment, their apprenticeship, which could be with one host, it could be with 2 hosts, or even 3 or 4. Occasionally, it's not very often, it's more than 2. Sometimes it can be 3. Then we work with them to actively seek full-time employment. In most cases, our apprentices have, come across a host or a subcontractor or a contractor that they've developed that relationship with them and automatically move into a job. There are some, obviously, who need more support from us. And as Victoria said, levy transfer is vital to all our apprenticeships. We need levy transfer for every apprentice that we have. If we don't get levy transfer, then obviously we can't employ the apprentice. So that's quite important to us. So we are working with a number of outside organisations. Some of our hosts transfer levy themselves to support their own apprentices that they have with us. Some of our hosts aren't able to do that, or they might be at SMEs. So we are working with other organisations who have excess amounts of levy transfer and choose us as a not-for-profit organisation to transfer their levy to support our apprentices. So we're very grateful to those sorts of organisations. So our costs, as you can see, it's a fully inclusive weekly cost, covers all the pastoral, in-work and academic support that we deliver, and the wage plus travel expenses. They all come with CSCS cards, PPE. We get offered, obviously, the support for our hosts. It's not just about supporting our apprentices. There's the cost of the college provision, unless levy transfer is given, and the recruitment costs, and they are all rolled up into a weekly amount. Just a couple of things. A couple of our apprentices, Andrew started his level 2 joinery career with us and completed after 2 years. He was with two host organisations, but then he decided that he'd had a bit of an epiphany, and did he really want to be a joiner? With the experience he's had on site, he thought, no, I want to progress and I want to become a site manager. So he applied for one of our other opportunities, and he became a site manager, and he's still undertaking a level 3 site management qualification. The same with Amy on the other side. She started out as a business admin apprentice, had no idea about what construction was, what careers were available within construction. And again, she decided that she wanted to be a site manager. And so she's now undertaken the level 3 site management qualification. So a couple of good outcomes there. They're just 2 really of a long list of successful outcomes that we've had. We run our Building Back Better Academy. So that's aimed at level 3, level 4 apprenticeships. So it develops the sector's future leaders. It's about learning on the job, career development opportunities. Again, we've had a real success with that, with many of our apprentices who actually were hosted by a number of our members of our social housing organisations. We had the highest number of distinction star achievements through the apprenticeships than we've ever had before. It was a real high moment for us and for the apprentices as well, obviously. A couple of our academy apprentices, Amelia and Elliot, who both got distinction stars. Amelia's now decided she wants to be a QS and is working for BAM Nuttall doing a degree apprenticeship. And Elliot is the same, working for MPS in Leeds, and he's pursuing a degree apprenticeship in building services. So 2 great outcomes for both those 2 young people. So 8 years on, we've round about 403 apprenticeships. It will be in the next couple of weeks, that will probably be about 415 because we've got quite a number starting at the moment, with 83 host employers. But what we do find is that when we've done a little bit of evaluation, the host employers that use us tend to come back to us. They tend to appreciate that the mentoring that we give our apprentices is actually a really good opportunity for them, and something that their apprentices benefit by. You know, we make it work for them. What is it that's going to keep them from attending work on a Monday morning? What's happening in work? How can we try to overcome any issues in the workplace, put an action plan in place? And from an academic point of view, are they achieving? And if they're not, how can we support them to achieve? I've even known one of our development coaches go into college and sit with one of our apprentices that was having a particularly difficult time. It's not something we do a lot of, but yeah, it's quite recognised by our hosts, the support that we give our apprentices. And we've offered 31 different types of apprenticeships, so we're always open to considering new apprenticeships. Obviously, it's got to be right. They've got to be the right training provider. Lots of things we have to consider, but we are open to those considerations. Okay, 98% of our apprentices who do successfully complete do gain industry employment. So that's a really, really good outcome that we have, and we're really proud of that. So as I said, we are in the process of registering on the FlexiJob apprenticeship agencies and looking at how we might be able to apply for some of the funding that's the £7 million pot of funding that is out there. We're really pleased that the government's recognised the importance of the work that us and the other shared apprenticeship services have been doing over the last 8-10 years. And they're actually looking to maybe extend this into other sectors. So it's not just the construction sector. There are other sectors that obviously can now be registered and actually apply for this funding. There, so I just thought I'd try and get through that as quickly as possible. Simeon did say earlier that we are slightly delayed, in delay. So if anybody's got any questions I'd like to ask.
We've got lots of time now. Jan's got a question.
Oh, sorry, it's me again. We actually had at Ongo, an apprentice training agency, as well as our recruitment organisation, and I've seen this opportunity. I wondered if we think there's any point in applying for the 7 million as a small organisation, or is it likely to be? I mean, difficult for you to answer that and say no, don't go for it. But I'm thinking that maybe the 7 million will go to larger organisations.
If you read the guidance, there is no set path. It's not the clearest of guidance to read, to be quite honest. Now, one of the things you have to be able to bid for the funding, you have to be on the register of FlexiJob apprenticeship agencies.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
So you have to be on the and what is not easy is that you put in an application for them both at the same time, and you're hearing about them both at the same time. So you might put the bid in for both of them, but if you're not successful with your registration, then you can't be successful with the funding. So you have to be both. And then as an organisation, you have to be the employer of the apprentices.
Yeah, that's fine. We're already in ATA, so we're already doing that under the current. But obviously they're coming to an end, aren't they? The ATA is coming to an end.
Yeah, registers closed now, and it's going to be taken away completely.
Yeah. So I think we are going to apply to go on the register, but I didn't know whether to, spend time actually doing the funding bid as well, really. But I guess you're not really going to answer that question anyway, because I guess it's down to me, unless there is anything that you're aware of that it really is more focused on larger organisations. We have about 50 apprenticeships at the minute that we're an ATA for, so it is quite small.
Yeah, there isn't anything, any guidance at the moment. I mean, they are focusing it on sectors that they feel need the shared model, the flexi model. What they're not wanting to do is detract from directly employed apprentices, which is not something that we want to do as an organisation. The direct route is often the best route if that is possible. But the services that we supply, like yourselves. So they are, but obviously if you're working in construction, that is one of the sectors that's mentioned, but there is nothing else in there. It's all dependent on what you put in your bid and how you structure that bid and how you feel that you want to bid for that funding. It doesn't give any indication any way as to the size, but or anything like that about you, unfortunately, no.
Okay, thanks, Julie.
Thanks, Jan. I mean, Julie, Michelle from Berners-Lee Homes has just put in a very nice comment in the chat, but about the Enable Futures offer and how well it works for Berners-Lee Homes. But is it worth just talking a bit about how Enable Futures are provided in the past, in particular, and still do to some extent, shared apprenticeship service for social housing landlords?
Yeah, so we've had a number of apprentices with social housing landlords. The majority of them have not been shared. They have been the social housing landlord have had the intention of keeping them for the duration, with the understanding that for the right person there could be a permanent role for them at the end. But they've come back to us for replacement apprentices when those have moved on and progressed, because again they like the mentoring services, they like the fact that that we do support them, particularly academically. Some colleges are not the easiest of colleges to work with. You don't often get the feedback from them that you require. So we obviously go in and sit down and discuss the progression of all our apprentices with the colleges, so that we can pick up on any hiccups, put any action plans in place that we need to. And the social housing organisations have recognised the fact that you know what we deliver, it does work, and they don't have the staff in a lot of cases to be able to offer the support that we do, and to be able to monitor them in the same way that we do would mean that they would probably need extra staff within their organisations. Now, yes, we have to charge a small management fee as part of our costs, but that small management fee that we charge nowhere would meet the cost of wages for an individual working within the organisation, the host organisation, that would actually be able to support those apprentices. So that's another reason why a lot of our social housing organisations come to us and time after time to take apprentices.
Okay, thanks. Are there any other further questions? Silence. When I circulate the slides by tomorrow morning, I'll attach Julie's contact details on as well. So you can all contact Julie if you've got further questions or want to find out far more about Enable Future services and things like that. So, okay, if there's no further questions, just come to the last part of the agenda, which is sort of AOB. And Hannah, are you on the line? I think you're back on.
I am back on. Hello, how are you
You
all
are.
doing?
Hi.
Sorry, I had to bob out and bob back in.
Yeah.
And
You're not on child run at the moment, type thing.
I'm not, but at any minute they're going to come storming back in. So if it gets very noisy very quickly, I do apologise. But yes, so just obviously as Lindsay outlined at the beginning of the meeting, ACES has been successful with quite a chunk of funding across South Yorkshire. It's funded through South Yorkshire, I can never say this, South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority, as they're now called, I believe, just getting my head around that. And it's part of the AEB budget. So ACES delivers on adult education budget across Lincolnshire, and really pleased to now have sort of bridged the gap and gone over into South Yorkshire for us. As you know, as a housing landlord, that's where we've got a significant amount of stock as well, so it's really positive for us. It's part of the Lot 4, so anybody who saw the opportunity will know which that bit that is, and it's very much around working with multi-generational worklessness within households. So all those really positive buzzwords that we all have to add into our bids, it's all in there. We have 2 service offers essentially operating in 4 different local authority areas. The service office is essentially it's about upskilling and reskilling is how we've tried to work this. It's a test and learn model, so I fully expect that there'll be tweaks and changes along the way as we adapt and understand what's working and what's working less. So all the time hoping to monitor and learn from this model. But essentially there's a longer term support model of up to 40 weeks, quite intensive employment support. As you can imagine, with that level of support, it's not just focused around the employability and a quick CV and off we go. It's very much the broader holistic approach, the support needs, which may possibly include things like your independent living skills and support with childcare, mental health, addictions and all the rest. That model is very much based for people who have never worked or have very limited experience within a work environment, and our second model is much more about that reskilling, so recognising the wave of redundancies, obviously everything that you've said in relation to furlough and people coming back from furlough and ultimately made redundant through that process. So it's a much shorter, sharper support model. It's up to about 8 weeks, but very similar in terms of the intensity for that time, but recognising what skills they've already got, what those transferable skills are, and looking at potentially retraining or entering new sectors as well. So sorry, my other landline's going, so I'll just turn that one off. That's effectively started. We are recruiting the team as we speak, so you'll probably see some vacancies. We're looking for quite localised people to work within those teams as well, so please, if you know anybody, pass that on. Requires some employability coaches, some employer engagement team and some admin support as well. So that's there. Just check the website out and yeah, watch this space really. Obviously Sean did his radio thing. I'm not radio, as you can probably tell, as I bumble my way through this. I'd be terrible on radio. So yeah, there'll be more kind of marketing and comms over the next couple of weeks in relation to that contract.
Great, thanks Hannah, and I'm really pleased you got it. And Enable Communities bid for this within the same framework for a different lot, and are on the framework, but it's currently awarded to a high appointed organisation. I think ACES were on that lot as well.
We were. It's a really, I've never come across in
bizarre.
Over the years, never come across that. And you got your first, letter successful on the framework, and you accelerated, but actually, it depends where you fall, doesn't it? And it all was very related to who bid for what as well. So it really different way of doing it, but yeah, thankfully it's meant that some delivery. Yeah, brilliant.
And you landed it.
Yeah.
So, can I just thank all the speakers, Lindsay, Vicky, Helen, Victoria, Julie and Hannah, for today's session. I think it's been really, really good. I'm sure you've all got many, many more questions, and you can use all the variety of communication methods that we have to our hands. I think possibly too many at times, to ask and network with each other going forwards. The next meeting is in 2 months' time. From the top of my head, I've forgotten it, but it's the second Tuesday of November. On the agenda, we certainly got for the landlord case study, Unity Housing Association talking. And then for the subject, any ideas open to all. I was thinking of focusing a bit on Kickstart, because unless something suddenly changes in the comprehensive spending review, and as much as I would like it to, I'm a realist and I don't think it will, that it will be coming towards the end of Kickstart for new placements. as opposed to the end of Kickstart, which could be as late as sort of May, June on a practical basis, as opposed to formally the end of June when it formally ends. So, and some stories about Kickstart, and on Enable Communities website, we're posting some case studies that are really, really good, and just put one really good video on today with one young woman working in a charity. So if other people have got other ideas, if people want more on apprenticeships, if people want more on other areas like T-levels or general skills, please tell me, and I'll try and find appropriate speakers. And I'm sure I can work with Lindsay in finding appropriate people as well, and I'm sure Lindsay will help. So I'll wrap up there then. Sorry we're tad over, but fascinating. And thanks very much to everybody for giving huge amounts of information. So on that point, goodbye, and have a good September.
Thanks, Simeon. Bye, everyone.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.